Danny Glenwright is the Executive Director of Action Against Hunger Canada. He joins me from Toronto to discuss the significance of the funding announcement from the government today. Mr. Glenwright, first of all, thanks for joining me today. We'll get to the announcement in a moment if I can, but first, tell me about Action Against Hunger Canada. What does your organization do and where?
Sure, thanks, Peter. Action Against Hunger is the leading international organization fighting hunger and its root causes. So we actually treat more children for malnutrition than any other organization. We work in more than 50 countries, in all the places where you can imagine, due to disease or conflict or poverty, that children and nursing mothers are suffering from malnutrition.
This funding announced today, $30 million over 5 years and then $10 million each year after that. How can that money change the lives of LGBTQ2I people who are living in sometimes terrible circumstances in these developing countries?
Sure. Well, I've spent many years traveling all around the developing world, and as a gay man, I can say that the situation for LGBTQ2 people internationally in the developing world is dire. We have referred to it as a hidden humanitarian crisis. Unlike most emergencies that are focused in one area, the problem for LGBT people is they're spread out all around the world, and they're either hiding within society or they're living life on the margins. And we know that they're more impacted by death, disease, and a destruction of their livelihoods than most other people in the general population. So this new funding announcement is a commitment from Canada. It's a really great first step and an acknowledgement that those people that are marginalized are not getting the type of humanitarian and international development support that they need. This is a humanitarian crisis, not the traditional one that we know, but it's still a crisis. And it shows that Canada is committed and is putting its money where its mouth is and is going to do something about supporting local organizations fighting to bring about equality in some of the places where these people are criminalized.
Let's talk a little bit more about how precarious is their existence in some of these countries?
Well, there's 72 countries around the world where homosexuality is still a criminal offense, and many of these punishable by death. We're talking about people who are targeted by religious institutions, by the media, by the police. They're often scapegoated by politicians who are struggling to get their political message across. They're struggling with tough economy, and guess who becomes the scapegoat? The LGBTQ2 community. And there are examples of this all over the world. We see it in the news every day. So the problem is different depending on where you go, and the extent of it is different depending on where you go. But the study that we found is there are hundreds of millions of LGBTQ people all over the world living in pretty bad circumstances. And
okay, so if I can give me a sense of how this funding, this particular level of funding from Canada, can help to overcome some of those barriers. How will that money be used on the ground?
Yeah, well, I think it's an innovative and a collaborative approach to working and supporting with some of the local level organizations that are trying to bring about equality. Most of the organizations in many of these countries that try to advocate for the rights of these people are tiny. They are often attacked. They often have no funding. So this is Canada saying, look, we're not going to come in there guns blazing and try to change your laws and try to influence your government. We want you to do that work, but we're going to support you in that work by setting up a collaboration between Canadians working on this issue and those local level organizations and equality movements in some of these countries.
This sounds like clearly a long-term challenge. And let me pick up on something you've said here and referred to a couple of times. How open will some of these societies be to groups like yours trying to improve the lives of individuals, and you touched on it, who face discrimination from many of the fundamental institutions in these countries, including the governments, the media, and the religious organizations? They shape those societies. So how open will they be to having organizations such as yours in countries such as Canada saying, look, you need to make change, let us help you do it?
Well, let's be clear. Action Against Hunger is an organization that fights hunger, so we're not explicitly advocating for the rights of LGBTQ people. What we're trying to do is sort of incorporate an acknowledgement of their struggle into our existing programming, because we know that they're affected by some of these issues more so than the general populace. In terms of other organizations that do explicitly advocate for these issues from Canada, I think that what this does is it opens the door to greater collaboration between them and the organizations on the ground. As you say, it's tough and it depends where you go, but there are examples of successes, and one of them was noted in in the press conference today with the minister, the story of India, which has decriminalized homosexuality this year. There's been successful gay pride, LGBTQ pride events in India since, and that was a long-fought struggle. As you noted, this is a long-term agenda. This is not going to happen overnight in some of these places, but we've got to start somewhere, and this commitment from Canada today is a huge accomplishment. We really praise it, and it's a big step forward, and I hope some of the other big international donors are paying attention.
Danny Glenwright, appreciate your time today. Thanks for giving us some perspective on today's announcement. Good to talk to you.
My pleasure. Thank you.